Alright, this is a long-awaited video. I'm finally getting on to the head gasket job on my white truck. I figured I better get it running like it should before I go back to swapping the engine into the Escalade. So I'm actually still waiting on the engine to come back from the machine shop. It's been there for 4 months and they're still not done with it. So next built engine will probably go to another machine shop, but I have used them before for other engines. And they did do good work, so I'll be patient and I won't hurry them along too much. But let's get started on the white truck. So I started taking it apart a little bit. You can see some of the fins got chewed up a little bit. I don't know how that happened, but other than that, the head gasket has been seeping for a little bit. It's been pressurizing the coolant system, so it's actually been shut off for 2 weeks, and this radiator hose is still stiff. Let's see how much pressure's on it. And it's black in there. It's definitely time to take care of that. So I bought the kit from Dirty Hooker Diesel, and I actually have a set of used head studs that I will use for it. They were going to go in the Escalade, but I will get the 625s for the Escalade. And this is going to be nice with doing this at my garage, and have all my tools at home and have everything I need. So most of the time when I'm working on pickup trucks, I'm running on bare minimum tools, because all my tools have always been at work where I work on big trucks. So I'm not a mechanic anymore, so it's nice having everything at home. Alright, so tearing it down has gone pretty well so far. I was going to show you guys something how I have mine set up though. So I've got my lift pump and the fuel line coming up the passenger side fuel rail, and I've actually got it going straight into as close to the CP3 as I can. So it goes right in there and then it goes straight to the CP3. So this fuel line is not being used, so I'm going to take it out to have more room, but I'm also going to take this fuel line out that comes across the engine, take it out. Be one less thing that's got to go back. So we'll keep tearing it down and hopefully get the heads off soon, and I'll show you guys some tricks to clean the head gaskets. Clean the heads up, take it in the machine shop. It's really hard not to take engine parts from the Escalade engine. Got the injectors, 12mm CP3, and all the valve train. I would love to put in this truck and put a single S475. But I'm gonna just leave it stock fuel for now, I guess. Put it back the way it was, but I am going to build a hood stack for it. So I've got the 3-inch stainless tubing over there in that box, and I've got some pie cuts. So I'm gonna make a hood stack for it, and I guess I'll cut a hole in the hood somewhere. This hood is pretty rough shape, the stock one on it. If I was gonna clean the truck up on the outside, make it nice, I would change the hood out anyway, probably for a cowl hood, so I'm not too worried about cutting a hole in this hood. It'll be worth it. Alright, one of the more difficult things on these trucks is that bolt right there. See, right below the turbo, and especially if the turbo, if you're running a little bit bigger than stock, I think the housing might be a little bit bigger. I don't know, this just seems like more of a pain than the last one I've done. I did LOY a couple months ago and it was not this hard. But I do have this little wrench. If you can see, if it'll focus on it, there we go. Take an old junky wrench I've got a drawer full of old sockets and wrenches I always use for special tools, and that will help. Once you get it started, spun a couple times, it's so close to the turbo that you can't get a wrench on it anymore. So you gotta just turn it a little bit and it will come all the way out, just like this. It gets to be a pain, but it'll come out. Keep on tearing it down. Once you get it out with the pliers, it's always mangled pretty good. But on these back two bolts right here, I always take these out and I will use those because they got an Allen head. So it's much easier to get a long swivel Allen head. I will show you what I'm talking about. It's much easier to put them back when you do that. Actually, that is the tool I use. 5mm. Make sure the one you use got those balls on it. It'll go down in there, put them on a lot easier. You're welcome for that. All right, I'm gonna show you guys how I pull the injectors out. This works pretty good. This is a very high mile truck, 300,000 miles. I guess it's not super high miles, but stick a pry bar in. Gotta have the inner fender out for this. It's kind of dark. Work it in. So far it's worked every time for me. I've had a couple of those that are stuck. That one was stuck pretty good, but still came out. I've had to use hoist and come along and everything else on them, but these all came out pretty good. Phew, that was tight too. A lot of times you're making a lot of cylinder pressure on a tuned truck, especially one that's been abused like this one. If you guys have seen the tuning videos, you've seen that it's been, when I did all the data logs, I saw 32 degrees of timing, I think was the highest, the tuner that had the highest timing. So tons of cylinder pressure, and a lot of times they'll leak combustion gases up past the injector. All that soot will get around the injector and they will seize in there. But these injectors came out pretty good. I know this one right here was pretty tight. It's not bad. Came out pretty good. She looks pretty good. All right, we are back at it. It's a couple days later. Kind of lost interest in it for a while, but the engine's almost done for the Escalade, supposedly. I've been hearing that, but I guess they're putting it back together now. I am going to have them assemble the bottom end on it, so it's time to get the truck done, my white truck, so we can go pick up the engine when it is ready for the Escalade. So got it pretty close here. It's just time to pull off the cylinder heads. Still got to pull the bolts out of them. I always pull the bolts out in the opposite, or the opposite of what you would put them back in. So if you pull them out on one end and work your way down, the spring from the head gasket will actually push the head up and it can warp the head. They're probably already warped, but if you just have two bolts left in the back, it can actually raise it up like a quarter to half an inch, especially on longer 6-cylinder engines, but it still does it on 4-cylinder or V8, sorry. if you can see that or not, but there's one last head bolt that will not come out with the engine in the chassis. So take a zip tie, let's hold it up a little bit. I don't know how well you can see that with it being kind of dark in here, but just zip tie it around the valve spring. It doesn't take very much pressure at all, and it will hold it high enough to where the cylinder head will still come out. So it's time to pull it out. I always forget that one ground. Someone had So want to get that coolant out pretty quick so it doesn't get down in the oil. Really, it looks pretty good. Let's pull this off. I'll probably find a family business to join. All right, when I always do it on the driver's side head, I always leave the manifold on it, and then on the passenger side head, when I pull it off, the dipstick tube comes between the manifold and the head. So I always gotta pull that manifold off while it's in the truck. But now we will strip down the heads and send them off to the machine shop. Rubber mallet would probably be better for this. Actually looks pretty clean for 300,000 miles. It hasn't had a certain Alright, so I pretty much lift this truck on Tune 5 ever since I did those tune comparison videos. So I've had 4 different tuners on it, not including the tunes I've done. So it's been tuned since it had 220,000 miles, and it has 300 and almost 30,000 miles now. So pretty soon after I tuned it, I put the bigger turbo on from Reichner Speed and Fab, and did the supporting mods and pretty much went max effort tune from there. So I've been 100,000 miles at 600 horsepower or over 600 horsepower, and I pretty much leave it on Tune 5 all the time. So I'm running, on my tunes, it's had on the majority of the time I'm at 30 degrees of timing on the max effort tune. So this is the head gasket that came out of it. You can see right there is where it was blown. Right into that coolant passage right there. Now I can wipe it off, but yeah. I don't know if it's focusing or not. You can see it's black. But you can see that the piston actually looks pretty good considering. I cleaned one off. I was looking for stress or heat cracks. Let me put this light down here. A lot of times, if they've been run hot, they'll start developing cracks around the pistons. And I have looked at all the pistons really well, and they all do look good. That spot that was blown, actually, I've already wiped it off, but it was right there. It was blown into that little coolant passage. So, heads are off to a different machine shop than the LMM engine is at. As soon as we get it back, we'll start putting it together. Until then, make sure you like and subscribe, and we will be back at it as soon as we get some parts back for either this or the Escalade.